The Marvel Cinematic Universe offered some of the most iconic Iron Man armors ever, with varying degrees of comic book fidelity, spanning from 2008's Iron Man to 2019's Avengers, Endgame. Tony Stark's various suits not only evolved technologically, but also visually paid homage, sometimes loosely, to their comic book counterparts. With over 80 armors featured throughout the MCU timeline, the very best and most compelling rival the most thrilling comic book counterparts. In Marvel Comics, Iron Man has worn hundreds of different armors since his 1963 debut, ranging from bulky gray prototypes to sleek spacefaring nanotech. While the MCU streamlined this into a more coherent visual journey, many designs were inspired by or nods to classic suits. It's worth noting that the names assigned to armor marks in the MCU does not match the comics models, so this list considers direct inspirations where known or the closest comic book counterpart. 10 Iron Man armor. Mark X Lee. In Iron Man 3, the Mark 42 armor stands out as one of the most unique color schemes in the MCU. Its gold-heavy design inverts the usual red and gold aesthetic, with a sleek and futuristic finish. In terms of comic book inspiration, this armor doesn't have a direct one-to-one counterpart. However, it bears a passing resemblance to the golden Model 2 armor Tony Stark wore early in his superhero career. That said, Model 2 was much more basic in function and design. The Mark Lee's modular system, where each piece flies independently to attach to Tony, is pure MCU innovation, later established in the comics from Model 70. It doesn't reflect any major comic suit in either functionality or color balance. Ultimately, the Mark Lee feels like a cinematic creation first, with only minor Man armor. Echoes. Mark X VIII, codenamed Casanova in Iron Man 3, part of Tony Stark's Iron Legion showcased during Iron Man 3, the Mark X VIII Casanova armor is a standout thanks to its sharp black and gray palette and sleek profile. While the name doesn't appear in the comics, the design seems inspired by the stealth armor, particularly the 2014 version seen in Iron Man Vol. 5. The stealth suit in the comics was built for covert operations and featured a similar low reflectivity design, with a matte finish and minimal visual noise. Casanova lacks the stealth tech context in the film, but mimics the minimalist, high-contrast aesthetic. In that way, it's one of the few Iron Legion armors to have an explicit analog in the comics. Though it appears only briefly and is destroyed during the battle against Aldrich Killian's extremist soldiers, its comic resemblance is notable. 8 Iron Man armor. Mark 7 in the Avengers and Iron Man 3. The Mark 7 armor introduced in the Avengers stands out for its bulkier, muscle-like design and rapid deployment capabilities. It strikes a distinctive visual tone with gold only on the biceps, thighs, and helmet faceplate, more restrained than later suits. Its overall structure and proportions draw from Iron Man's appearance in the new Ultimates comic series, particularly those drawn by Frank Cho. The rounded anatomical shaping of the armor gives it a superheroic physique, rather than a purely mechanical one. While not a replica of any single comic suit, the Mark 7 lands somewhere between the Ultimates era and traditional red and gold designs. It's a solid hybrid of comic book influences and MCU practicality, and its launch sequence from a flying pod remains one of Iron Man's coolest on-screen armor. Mark LXXXV in Avengers. Endgame. Tony Stark's final suit, the Mark 85, strikes a careful balance between innovation and nostalgia. This nanotech armor draws heavily from the classic red and gold suit designed by Steve Ditko, first seen in Tales of Suspense 48. The visual cues are clear, bold red boots, gloves, and upper torso with gold highlights across the limbs and abdomen. The MCU version features significantly updated paneling, layered textures, and mechanical intricacies, but the silhouette and color distribution echo Ditko's iconic design. It's a faithful modernization, making Mark 85 feel like one of the most comics-accurate armors in the MCU despite the differences. Fittingly, this was Stark's final battle suit before his death. It is a tribute to the character's MCU legacy and the original comic book vision that first introduced Iron Man to readers in the 1960s. 6 Iron Man armor. Mark L in Avengers, Infinity War and Avengers. Endgame. The Mark 50 was a major leap in Iron Man's evolution. utilizing nanotechnology to generate weapons, shields, and even wings on command. Visually, it's a sleek, predominantly red suit with gold accents and a triangular arc reactor. It doesn't directly match any single comic suit, but pulls heavily from the bleeding-edge armor introduced in Invincible Iron Man 25, 2010, and the Model Prime armor from Invincible Iron Man Vol. 2, 2015. Both of those comic suits used nanotech and could morph in real time to suit different needs. The Mark L perfectly captures that same modular versatility. While the exact design is uniquely MCU, it is rooted in these groundbreaking comic runs. Its dynamic functionality and high-tech features make it one of the closest spiritual successors to Iron Man's more advanced comic book Mark X Live, codenamed Hulkbuster in Avengers. Age of Ultron. The Hulkbuster armor, Mark 44, is one of the most visually striking Iron Man suits in the MCU. Designed to subdue the Hulk, it's a massive, reinforced exoframe that wraps around a regular Iron Man suit. In the comics, the Hulkbuster concept first appeared in Iron Man 304, May 1994, with a similarly bulky aesthetic, an oversized round head, gigantic shoulders, and tank-like limbs. The MCU version channels that original design while updating it, with modern textures and more mechanical realism. It also references later Hulkbuster upgrades seen in storylines like World War Hulk. While the idea and visual scale are directly lifted from the comics, the film version refines and exaggerates certain aspects to fit its cinematic needs. Still, it's a faithful translation of one of Tony Stark's most famous specialized armors. 4 Iron Man armor, Mark III in Iron Man 2, and Iron Man 3. The Mark III armor is arguably the first suit to truly define Iron Man's cinematic look. Debuting in the final act of Iron Man 2008, it introduced the now iconic red and gold color scheme. The design, with golden arms, thighs, and faceplate, closely resembles Iron Man's new Ultimates appearance, particularly the suit drawn by Brian Hitch. The proportions, angular plating, and polished finish mirror the Ultimates' modernized aesthetic, while maintaining a recognizable classic silhouette. As Tony's first true battle-ready armor, the Mark III became the visual foundation for nearly every suit that followed. It captures the spirit and energy of Iron Man's comic book roots, even if it's not tied to one specific version. This is where the character's big-screen legacy truly began, and it's one of the most iconic representations of Stark's engineering armor, genius. Mark IV in Iron Man 2 and Iron Man 3. The Mark IV suit might not seem dramatically different from the Mark III, but its visual refinements and updated functionality make it a standout. With sleeker lines, a more compact profile, and a brighter color finish, the Mark IV feels like a cinematic version of Iron Man's classic comic design. It's strikingly similar to Invincible Iron Man Vol. 4, which modernized Tony's look with smoother armor plating, a more elegant silhouette, and less vibrant colors. Related 10 most iconic superhero movie quotes of all time. Superhero movies are littered with famed catchphrases and memorable dialogue, but some quotations quickly became iconic in the genre and beyond. The MCU version reflects that same streamlined sensibility while retaining the signature color balance and faceplate shape. The Mark IV serves as a kind of aesthetic reset after the rugged, war-born Mark III, offering a clean and faithful visual update. It feels like the closest MCU armor to what you'd imagine seeing on the page in a modern Iron Man comic. 2 Iron Man armor, Mark VI in Iron Man 2, The Avengers in Iron Man 3. The Mark VI marked a visual shift with the introduction of a triangular arc reactor, a detail inspired directly by the Extremis armor from Iron Man Vol. 4. In the comics, the Extremis design began modernizing Iron Man with sleeker lines and internalized technology, and the MCU carried that over beautifully. The Mark VI is particularly close to models 29 and 30 from the comics, which featured more angular plating and a heavily stylized chestpiece. In the films, this suit appears more mechanical and less humanoid than its predecessors, emphasizing its functional upgrades and increased durability. Keeps the standard red and gold color palette. The sharper edges and new arc reactor shape give it a distinct identity. As a transitional armor between classic and nanotech-era suits, the Mark VI balances comic influence with cinematic evolution. 1 Iron Man Mark I. In Iron Man Mark I is where it all began. not just for the MCU, but for Iron Man's origin as a superhero. This armor, built by Tony Stark in a cave in Iron Man 2008, is a loving update of the original suit that debuted in Tales of Suspense 39th, 1963. Like its comic counterpart, the film's Mark I is bulky, makeshift and gray, constructed from spare parts under duress. The design maintains the same stovepipe limbs, dome-shaped helmet, and heavy plating that defined the original armor, though the MCU version is understandably more detailed and functional-looking. It's one of the most faithful comic-to-screen transitions in the entire franchise. While later suits emphasized style and sophistication, the Mark I was raw necessity and survival. Its appearance grounds the MCU in its comic roots, making it an essential piece of Iron Man's cinematic and comic book legacy.